Hi, this is RotorBench. Here is our video demo. We are in the home page right now with a 3D view of our preset drone. In the 3D view, we can rotate the drone, flip it back and forth, zoom out and zoom in as you need to. You can also go to 2D view, which gives you an idea of how wide things are. For example, if the propellers are colliding with each other, it might be a good time for you to pick a bigger frame, just so we don't have this issue later on. Before we pick any components, there's going to be no stats being displayed. So we're going to start by doing a new build over here. In the build configuration page, there's going to be no component before in the 3D preview before we start picking them out. So let's start with a frame. I'm going to go with a 5-inch. This is a Mark IV frame. As you can see, you can toggle the visibility by clicking the green button right here. You can also change the background from dark gray to white if you have a hard time seeing the color of the frame or whatever component. We're gonna go back to dark gray just for the demo. The motors are the same thing. You can pick them out. These are just kind of give you an idea of what they look like, how big they are relative to the frame, and then you can do some propellers. I'm gonna do 50-40 for this demo. You can kind of see, okay, if they're not hitting each other, they should be fine. Gonna pick some ESC. Let's do 50 amps, flight controller, and a battery, 6S, and something like that. So you can see all the parts displayed here. So at this point, you can either reset, save, and go back to home, or analyze. Let's do analyze to see what stats we're working with. The selected components are being displayed. So the most important thing about a drone is obviously, okay, are we gonna fly or not? So the thrust to weight ratio comes in. Once we have the motor, the KV value, the propellers, and the battery power, you can kind of estimate the total thrust that we can probably have. And by having the rest of the components, we can have an estimate the weight. So a 9.39 to 1 ratio is actually quite good. The only downside of this build is that the power draw is quite high. So if you're flying as FPV drone, it might not last a long time. So the estimate right here is 3.8 minutes, but again, it's not gonna be accurate. Just to give you an idea of how long this thing could fly. So you can also look at the battery discharge curve over here. It is plotting the battery voltage and the remaining capacity versus the flight time. And then of course at the bottom there is a total cost. At this point, you can always go back to the build, edit it, you can order it, or let's go back to home. And then, you can always look at it here. Go to save build. This is the build I saved from earlier. You can do the drop down for the components. Just kind of look at it, analyze, or go back, right? We also have a profile system, which you have your email, your GitHub username, etc. You can save your build, share with your friends. So yeah, that's our ad. Thank you for watching.